ready to record.
We're good to go.
Thanks. Good morning. We'll call our April 2022 meeting to order, and I'd like to ask the board to first approve our virtual procedures for today's meeting. So a motion to adopt the new procedures has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Leonte?
Approve.
I'll note that Vanessa is not yet joined, so I'll go to Sherilyn.
Approve.
Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul? Paul, I think you're on mute.
Approve.
Thank you. Kellen?
Approve.
And Carol?
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2, a motion to approve our minutes from the March 24th meeting has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Leonte?
Approve.
Sherilyn?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Kellen?
I approve.
And Carol?
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 3, a motion to approve 186 pension applications and 91 withdrawal applications has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
I approve.
Leonte?
Approve.
Sherilyn?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Kellen?
I approve.
And Carol?
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving into section 4. 4A, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Joseph Devlin has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian?
I approve.
Leonte?
Approve.
Sherilyn?
Abstain.
I'm sorry, Sherilyn, did you say abstain?
Yes.
Thank you. Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Kellen?
Approve.
And Carol?
Approve.
Jack, you have Vanessa as well now.
Okay, great. And I'll go back to Vanessa for 4A for her vote.
This is 4A Joseph Devlin.
Correct, 4A.
I approve.
Thank you. The motion carries 7-0 with 1 abstention. 4B, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Ismat Wadad has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none.
Didn't we just
Brian?
vote on 4B?
We just voted on 4A, Carol.
Isn't 4B the one where Shirley just abstained?
We had just started section 4, so the first one that we just voted on where Sherilyn abstained was for 4A.
Okay, go ahead.
So 4B, motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Ismat Wadad has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian?
That was good work on that name too, Jackie. I approve. That was
I try. Hopefully they'll forgive me. Leonte?
approve.
Thank you. Vanessa?
Approve.
Sherilyn?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
Approve.
Kellen?
Approve.
And Carol? Carol, do we have you for 4B?
Oh, yeah, you got me. Approve.
Thank you. 4B carries unanimously. 4C, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Ryan Waltman has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Approve.
Vanessa,
Approve.
Sherilyn,
Approve.
Roosevelt,
Approve.
Paul,
Approve.
Kellen,
Approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
4C carries unanimously. 4D, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Lolita Williams has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this pending item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Approve.
Paul,
Not.
Kellen,
Approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
Okay. 4D was a tie, and to avoid a benefit of the doubt, the chair will also vote to deny 4D, and so the motion fails 4-5 with the chair voting. 4E, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Kayumba Case has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this pending motion? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I'll abstain.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
Deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Abstain.
The motion fails 0-6 with 2 abstentions. 4F, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Antoinette Gooding has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this pending item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I'll abstain.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
Deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Abstain.
4F fails 0-6 with 2 abstentions. 4G, a motion to approve the service-connected disability benefits for Barbara Tiano Webb has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Approve.
Paul,
Deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Approve.
4G fails 3-5. That moves us into section 5A, a motion to approve the application for service-connected death benefits regarding Alfred Hill, the deceased, on behalf of Terry Hill has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item?
Jackie, I want to recommend this go to a hearing panel.
Okay. There was an alternate motion to send this 5A case to a panel. Is there a second from a board member?
Second.
Thank you. The motion to send, a revised motion to send 5A to a hearing panel has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the revised motion?
Jackie, this is Brian. I'm okay with the hearing panel, but I don't know if I'll be on the panel, so I want to say this. Dr. Hayworth says it doesn't meet the 3-week criteria for the ordinance that was passed by City Council, and I just don't agree with that. If you do the math, if he passed away on May 17th, the death certificate says 5 weeks he had COVID. That'll take you back to approximately April 12th, give it, within a day or two. If he worked till the end of March, that's That's about 10 to 15 days, to, with some leeway, certainly within the 21-day or 3-week guideline. So I just want to make that clear so whoever's on the hearing panel can do that same math. But that's all I have to say, Jackie.
Thanks, Brian. And I think Carol's suggestion is a good one for those reasons to have that discussion.
Yeah, because
For that discussion.
that's exactly what I said. The math is not adding up. So he meets the 3-week, even if you don't go, he meets the 3 weeks deadline. So the hearing panel will be fine, Brian. I totally agree with you.
Okay. Is there any additional discussion on the revised motion before we go to the roll call? Okay, hearing none. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Approve.
Vanessa,
Approve.
Sherilyn,
Approve.
Roosevelt,
Approve.
Paul,
I approve.
Kellen,
Approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
The revised motion carries unanimously. Section 6A, a motion to approve the application to rescind drop enrollment for Brandy Ellerby has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
Deny.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
Deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Deny.
The motion fails 0-8. Section 7A, a motion to approve the purchase of pension credit for prior governmental service for Janet Crudell has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll call. Brian,
Deny.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
Deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Deny.
The motion fails 0-8. 8A, a motion to approve the request to be placed in pension plan J for Yvette Williams has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
Deny.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
I deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Deny. But Jackie, before you go ahead, finish the vote. I have a question.
Okay, the motion fails 0-8. Go ahead, Carol.
So when did Plan M cease to exist? Because when I got hired, Plan J was in effect. So she got hired after me. So why was she placed in Plan M and not in Plan J? Is the question. I mean, she took her money out the fund. So that in itself is self-explanatory. But I'm confused about why was she placed in Plan M? Is it because she was exempt?
I'll ask Fran for a point of information.
Plan M predates Plan J. You're right. I don't know why she was placed in Plan M. We'll be glad to look at that. We didn't look at it because it's not relevant to the decision here, but we will be glad to look at it.
Yeah, it's not relevant to the decision. That's correct. But I just need to know for clarity, because I know when I got hired in '69, I was in Plan J. So she got hired way after me. She's in Plan M. And I do remember when, I think it was Wilson Good, I'm not sure which mayor, but I do remember when they started letting public employees pay into Social Security, there was a switch with the city to allow people in Plan K and L to move over. Plan M was the weakest one, so they decided to merge it. I thought they merged Plan M with Plan J, but I'm just confused as to why somebody was hired in 86 was in Plan M. And maybe it's because they was exempt, but I didn't
Yeah.
know Plan M was still around.
We'll go back and look at the history and get back to you on that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Fran. Now we're moving into section 9, old business. 9A, a motion to approve the change of the survivorship option and the survivor past the appeal deadline for Anthony Moore has been made and seconded. Is there discussion on this item? Hearing none, we'll go to the roll call. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
I approve.
Paul,
I approve.
Kellen,
I approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
Motion carries 5-3. 9B, a motion to approve the application for service-connected disability benefits beyond the one-year deadline for Eugene Mallon III has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this pending item? Okay, Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
I approve.
Paul,
I approve.
Kellen,
I approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
Motion carries 5-3. 9C, a motion to approve the request to rescind drop enrollment for Richard Kralzik has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, Brian,
Deny.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
Denied.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Denied.
Motion fails 0-8. 9D, a motion to approve the application for service-connected disability benefits beyond the one-year deadline for Jesse Bryant has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this pending item? Brian,
I'll abstain.
Leonte,
Deny.
Vanessa,
Deny.
Sherilyn,
Deny.
Roosevelt,
Deny.
Paul,
I deny.
Kellen,
Deny.
and Carol.
Denied.
The motion fails 0-7 with 1 abstention. Brings us into new business and the executive director's report.
Okay, so everyone sees there's the education report, education conference report is in the materials. The virtual hearing panels. So just want to go back and review briefly. So on August 27th, 2020, this board unanimously voted to adopt the virtual hearing panel procedures that Jim worked so hard to put the regulatory scheme into place, working along with law on that Bill put into place technologically the same way he has done these board meetings and has done a fabulous job on that. In fact, we just voted on case 9A, B, C, and D, which were all hearing panels done virtually, which enabled these individuals to get their case heard and to avoid a backlog of people on appeals. So I want to thank Bill, Sharon, Jimmy, and everyone else who did a tremendous job, Ellen, Teresa, and Lori, a tremendous job of getting the cases heard virtually during a time when the courts, other boards, other agencies were having 0 cases heard, 0. So tremendous job by everyone here. The board, as you heard Jackie say at the beginning of the meeting, renews the virtual hearing procedures each and every board meeting for this meeting. and it's similar for the hearing panels. They have gone without hitch for the most part since August 2020, after they were approved, and they started in September of 2020. So I want to thank Bill, Jim, Sharon, and everyone for that. There's been a request recently to return to in-person hearing panels, and there's also been some discussion of the possibility of making it optional for those who prefer a live hearing or those who still are hesitant. I will simply share with everyone that the mask mandate for the city has been, of course, altered. So there is no mask mandate. However, the most recent communication we received on April 25th is an updated masking requirements for city employee and in city buildings from the CAO of the city. The Office of Chief Administrative Officer indicates that the health department announced that residents and visitors are strongly encouraged to, but not required to, wear a mask in indoor public spaces. Starting on April 25th, all employees and members of the public entering city buildings are strongly recommended to wear masks indoors. So although the mask is not a mandated policy, it is still strongly encouraged for city employers and visitors to public buildings. So I just want to make sure that we have that background. I don't know, we are fully able to restart in-person hearings. We are able to continue virtual hearings. We are able to provide an option. Remember, each individual who had a virtual hearing had to sign off on whether or not they wanted to have a virtual hearing or not. So we still have the capabilities of those who are more comfortable doing it that way. That we could provide them the option if we choose to, or we can go to in-person hearings, or we could do a combination of those. So if the board has a motion on that, we will certainly conduct the hearings however the board sees fit, and how they believe that they can best receive evidence and information and make the most informed decision. And I understand that certainly for example, credibility determinations, as a judge will tell anyone, is easier to make in person than through a virtual sort of situation. I understand that, and I understand that the board has defined their fact. So that's why we want to put all those options out there for the board in order to make the most informed decision, like we do on any topic. The board makes a decision, and we want to make sure you have all information in order to make the most informed decision. So that's where we're at now. I don't know if anyone has a motion. And by the way, if the board were to vote to have virtual hearings, they would commence in June. So again, there would be no delay, no backlog, and we might have maybe 4 or 5 cases that will be scheduled, waiting to be scheduled, and they will be scheduled for June. So again, no delay. Regardless of in-person or virtual, there will be no delay. So that's where we're at. I promised I would give an update at this board meeting. That is the update. And if the board has a motion, I think now would be the time to make that motion.
Can I ask a
Let me-
question?
Go ahead. Ask the
Oh, I was gonna
question.
ask a question. So, Fran, you said that we could give the option to in-person or virtual. Would we make sure that we didn't have a schedule that's hybrid?
Yes, we
Only
would not.
'cause-
Yes,
Okay.
Kellen, we would not. We would not put the hearing panel through that. We would not mix and match on the same day. Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
We're a little bit understanding in that respect. Yes.
So, thank you, Fran, for the update. And I want to thank everybody for being considerate of the virtual. So, but you just made a point. So you mean if we decide to go in person, we're able to go in person in June, not virtual, because we already virtual, right?
There are no hearings scheduled right now. Like I said, we only have a couple hearings waiting to be scheduled, but we knew we would be bringing this up today. So whatever the board decides, that's how those hearings will be scheduled.
So let me just say that I brought it up. So, and although we did just do 9A, B, and C, there was a problem with case B, getting that man on virtual. And this is not the only case. And if people want to be truthful, I'll just speak for me, just about every hearing panel, because the administration side is not sitting on the hearing panel. It's the trustees and the controller. So the administration side sat on the last one, but they're not sitting on these, so they don't experience what we experience, okay? So in every case that I have sat on, at least one of the cases had a problem getting the member on virtual, not 5 minutes, it was like 20 minutes. And in one case, me and Ellen was going back and forth in the email, like, not in the email in that case. In one case, we was texting back and forth, like, this client needs to reschedule, this employee needs to reschedule, because they couldn't get them on. And then they go from one, just like we do. We go from our tablet to our desktop to our cell phone to try to get into these meetings, because sometimes we have had the same problem. Brian especially had a problem getting on Microsoft Teams. I'm not saying it's the pension board, it's Microsoft Teams, because every Microsoft team is Microsoft Teams. Number two, we had new trustees who should be able to experience what is entailed as part of them being a trustee as holding a hearing panel. They cannot get that experience virtual. That's just me. But they can speak for themselves too. And if the city is mandating people to come back to work, then why we can't do in-person hearings? And all I said was the 17th floor is big enough to spread everybody about, and we can mandate people wear masks. That's just me. I made the motion. I made the suggestion. I didn't make the motion. I asked, was there a problem while we're still doing virtual as opposed to in person? So like I said again, most of the administration, except for maybe Cheryl and the law department, don't experience what we experience for virtual hearings, because y'all not doing the hearings. If you look at the panel, it speaks for itself. It's two trustees and the controller. Once in a while, Cheryl gets on. So that's what I'm saying, but it doesn't matter. It's what the trustee has to do as part of their duty, and they should be able to experience what they are required to do. So, and a member shouldn't have, I know it's convenient, but it ain't all the time convenient. And that's what I was saying. So I'm finished. Whatever y'all want to do, it don't make a difference, because y'all want to do what y'all want. I can't with this. I can't. So I can just.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. So no one is saying not to have in-person hearings. In fact,
Your whole speech was just against not doing it in person. So it doesn't matter. I mean, and you're supposed to give us that information. That's what I'm saying. But also, you're supposed to look out for everybody that is in concern. If we're putting people in harm's way, then that's one thing. But when you got people coming to work amongst each other, so what's the harm in us doing a virtual, in-person hearing? That's all I'm saying. So.
yeah, so I'll just reiterate. Not once did I say we should not do in-person hearings. In fact, I said the opposite. Number two is that there has been no due process issue with any person who had a hearing panel. In fact, they volunteered to participate. They were not forced to participate.
That's true, Fred, but wait a minute, excuse me, so what does that mean? That doesn't mean that a problem don't exist because a person volunteered to do a virtual hearing. That don't mean we don't have a problem once we sign on to do it, does it?
Absolutely. There's not everything always goes perfect. That's exactly right. But for the most part, Bill has done a tremendous job in running the virtual hearings. Tremendous job. So I again thank him for that. And the administration has nothing to do with this. The Board of Pensions, as you know, is an independent board. The administration has made zero requests on whether the hearings be in person or virtual. So this has nothing to do with the administration trustees. I do agree with you, however, that it would be helpful to have a wider range of participation on the hearing panels from all trustees in order to have more balance. So I agree with that 100%. So we are, like I said, we are ready to have in-person virtual hearings or provide people the option, whatever the board chooses to do. Again, I reiterate it's whatever the board chooses to do. What I didn't want to do, and why I said what I said, is because I do not want the board nor the record to reflect that somehow the virtual hearing panels have not provided individuals with the due process and opportunity that should be afforded to them. So that's why I said what I said, not to try to persuade anyone to have vote for or against in-person or virtual hearings. We are willing to make everything available in order to assist the applicant. So that's why I said what I said.
Okay, Fran, so I did not say, nor do I indicate that the administration had anything to do with the vote on virtual, nor did I say Bill is not doing a good job. I have said time and time again that not only Bill, but the pension staff is doing a good job on handling the whole situation of everything virtual. Everything that's going on. I did in the beginning say it was not Bill's fault, it's Microsoft team. And I'm not blaming I said it was Microsoft team. What I am saying though, is that it's my understanding, if you're a trustee, part of your duties is to sit on a hearing panel. I didn't say the administration said don't do virtual. I said there's nobody on the administration side that is doing the hearing panel. It's mostly the trustees, the elected trustees. That's what I said. So
And that's a big help. You're right. I appreciate you bringing that up because as I've said numerous times, and as Lori has reached out to people, it's always nice to have a balance and not put the burden on the same individuals to sit on hearing panels. So I appreciate that, Carol. Thank you. So I think Carol might want to make a motion here. I'm going to take a wild guess and think Carol might want to make a motion. So why don't we do that, Carol? And I think, I think we'll be all set to go for June.
I would love for the hearing panels to go back in person, but if the majority, I'm not here to cause distinction and disruption and stuff like that, but I think we need to all work on this together. We all need to understand we have new trustees and everybody should be understand. Yes, I make the motion that we go back to virtual. To in person. That's all we're on this.
And
Carol,
Carol,
it's
I'm sorry.
Vanessa. And
Thanks,
don't mean to interrupt you, and I'm fine with doing in-person hearings. But I would suggest, could the motion be modified? Maybe this is inappropriate. I'm sorry, Carol. Shouldn't be telling you how to do your motion. What I was going to suggest is that the motion be modified, that we allow for in-person and or virtual hearings, subjected to the individual who is participating, whether or not they want one. My concern is that we don't know whether someone who needs one of these hearings could potentially be immune compromised or something else, that it would make it difficult or a health hazard for that individual for us to do an in-person hearing, right? For the lion's share of people, it wouldn't be a problem, and I have no problem with doing that. But I do think that we should leave the option to be able to do a virtual should someone want it or need it or request it, particularly given that the COVID situation is continuing to fluctuate and the city's position on masking, not masking, and other stuff changes dependent upon case counts and a number of other metrics. So that's all I'm saying is we can do in person and probably should be doing in person, but we should also leave sort of that hybrid option for those people who may be health compromised and can't do or are afraid to do an in-person hearing.
Vanessa, I do accept your amendment. That's fine with me. I mean, like I said, I'm here to work with everybody as a team so we can get stuff done. So I'm, I accept that motion. That's fine. That's wonderful.
Yeah, this is Diana. For what it's worth, I agree with Vanessa, and it's like she was in my head. And Carol, one of the things that we could potentially do, if folks continue to choose the virtual option, is perhaps change it to Zoom instead of Teams. If we think Teams is the issue, we can try Zoom, as there's been less reported issues with that platform.
We are glad to look at that. Very happy to look at all those options. Yep.
Okay. So there's been a motion to offer members the option to do either an in-person hearing or a virtual hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to offer the option for participants to have an in-person or a virtual hearing panel. Is there any discussion on this item before we move to a vote?
Yeah, if I can just add that the way the board has adopted regulation number 1 dealing with hearings, panel hearings, the option is available in the amended regulation 1.16. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, 1.16 is the virtual hearing procedures, and the rest of the rule regulation 1 to 1.15, provides the ability to do the in-person. So the option then will be available if the board so moves and votes to allow that option. I just wanted to add that to for background purposes.
I'm
Thanks,
sorry,
Jim.
to allow
Do you
what
need-
option again? To allow what, I think I lost what you were saying. What you said? Say it again, please. I'm sorry.
The regulation that the board had previously adopted and then amended to include the virtual procedures, panel hearing procedures, does provide that option. The participant has to consent and to use the virtual option and acknowledge that it provides the full due process to them. So if the board now, based on this motion, so votes to move forward with allowing that option, it is available. I just wanted to provide that background.
But the regulation doesn't have to be amended again, is what you're saying.
Thanks, Fran. That puts it very simply and accurately.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for the layman's explanation for me, Fran. Jim, do you need us to actually take a vote then, or to affirm that? It sounds like it's already.
No, we have to take a vote on the Carol's
Okay.
motion.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the roll. Brian,
I approve.
Leonte,
Approve.
Vanessa,
Approve.
Sherilyn,
Approve.
Roosevelt,
Approve.
Paul,
Approve.
Kellen,
Approve.
and Carol.
Approve.
Motion carries unanimously.
We have a couple other things. Let me just say, we should all take heart that the risk manager attorney voted approve for the in-person hearings. So we're all safe. Thank you, Charlene. Number 2, the PAF. So the PAF will be payable in the May normal payroll. It'll be an adjustment to the normal monthly pension. There is a letter that is virtually done, should go out in the next couple of days from the Board of Pensions, notifying folks of the PAF so they're not surprised, and it's a good surprise, but that they know what to look for, right? They know to look for it. And again, that's being done. That was really good work by everyone. And I'll just say that the IT folks that we use for the city payroll, this is their first time through the process. So it took a lot of work, and it worked out very well. And Shamika and Bill, Dana, Stanford did worked very closely with city payroll and the IT folks. So it's good work by everyone. I want to thank them again. You are in receipt of the state audit, the actuarial report, and the experience study. That's a lot of reports all in one general sort of time. So, you have them all electronically. And if anybody has any questions about them, just let us know. There's a current bill in the State House Bill 2010. And the reason I bring it up is because it's seems to be a direct result of kind of some of the things that went on at PSERS. I'm going to comment on this bill and then make a couple of my own comments. Is that it requires, in essence, the bill requires training. It requires a trustee, board member, or other appointed or elected official who stands in a fiduciary relationship to the members and beneficiaries of a pension fund to undergo training in fiduciary law. And The initial training is a 2-hour training. Then there's a 1-hour training on an annual basis. It has some other aspects to it, and the law department is working on monitoring this for us. Thank you to Ellen and Diana. However, the one thing I just want to say is that this is a direct offshoot of some of the things you've read about what went on at PSERS, or what was alleged to have gone on at PSERS concerning some of their actions. And I will say that some of the recommendations, for example, the outside agency made to PSERS was to hire a chief compliance officer, to have an internal audit director, to have transparency, to things that we have done, this board has adopted for years and years. So I want to commend the board. I want to commend Chris for having the consultant provide quarterly investment training seminars, for Jim for being available to answer questions concerning compliance, ethics, and other sort of issues, or to refer the trustees to the appropriate city ethics expert or the law department. So this board, when you read things like this is not a hurdle for our trustees to have training that is in this bill. It's amazing to me that this is just being considered by the state for the state pension trustees and fiduciaries to undergo the training. So, we will of course comply with this, and we will continue to do what we do. We just have to formalize it and make sure that we report it. But I just, again, wanted to point that out, that this board does a lot of good things, and it shows once again that this board has been ahead of the curve on these type of issues. So thank you for that. The annual financial disclosure, speaking of ethics, just a reminder, as city employees, I think we're kind of tired of the emails we get on a regular basis telling us to file. So I filed last week just so I didn't have to get the emails any longer. But the disclosure is due May 2nd. And as a board member, you do have to file the annual disclosure. I know that Jim has assisted some of our trustees in filing and is available if you have any questions. So again, that's May 2nd that is due. And I think just a reminder about the papers seminar that's coming up. I think you know about that. So I think that's everything I have today. So thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Fran, and thanks to you and the staff and consultants for all of the resources and education that you offered to us as board members and designees. We really appreciate that.
So can I have I have a question again, Fran. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Carol.
So the PAF is going to be, the multiplier is 39.70. So I was just wondering if you could give an example of how it works, since we have new trustees on the call and never dealt with before, and they may have to deal with members that, like I said, the years of service and the years of retirement. So can you just give us a quick example of how the multiplier impacts on that?
Sure. Without doing the math, I'd be glad to give an example. That's why I went to law. That's why I went to law school. So yeah, if someone has to be retired as of June 30th, 2011. So assuming they meet that criteria, for each year of credited service that they have, and for each year that they have been in retirement, right? So there's two different number of years of credited service, and then years that they've been in retirement. Take those total years and multiply it by the factor, 39.70. And that's the unadjusted pre-tax amount that they will receive in a one-time PAF lump sum to be paid over a 2-year period.
Okay.
Now, the multiplier might be a little different next year, just so the new trustees understand that, because remember, out of the 76 million available, the board voted to allocate 40 million this year, then the remainder next year. So the multiplier, assuming there's not another PAF, will be probably slightly less next year, since assuming the same general number of retirees. I mean, we don't know you know, how many may pass away or how many more may become eligible, you know, might meet that 10-year requirement next year. But the multiplier is likely to be slightly less next year. But so, yeah, years of credited service that they have, which they know, and then how many years they've been in retirement. Those two numbers are used as the multiplier against the $39.70. So is that okay?
That's fine for me. I hope, you know, they understand it. So my next question is, and I know you answered it, but I'm trying to, is there a reason why we can't make a one-time adjustment and have this as a separate check, being that, you know, COVID was really hard on a lot of people for the last 2 years. And if we combined it with the checks, then it's going to throw them into a different tax bracket where they might not even see the increase or the
So,
bonus. You say not the increase. Let me change, not the increase. I stand corrected. The PA pension adjustment fund.
So there's two things. So as far as them not realizing it, not recognizing it, that's why we're sending out the letters. So that's number one. But I'll answer your question ultimately. Number two, without giving tax advice, whether they get it as part of their regular paycheck or a separate paycheck, it's still taxable income. So
Yes, I'm not talking about
it
that
still
part.
goes
I'm not.
out.
No,
So
I'm not.
so the third part, whether we could do it as a separate check, that is possible. However, it's not how we've done it. But when, given that we wanted to get this out on a, you know, in a timely basis, it was, the notice was slightly later this year from Chiron. But in order to get it out on a timely basis, we didn't want to alter the process. If the board wants us to look at that and consider that for next year, we would have plenty of time to do that. So I hope that gives a little more depth to my previous response, was that, you know, it's more efficient to be part of the, you know, normal monthly paycheck.
So yes, I realize all income is taxable when you get it at the end of the year. That's not what I was questioning. But when you put this on top of the regular pension, it takes out more money right now. Just like, for instance, you know, so it just takes, it would put them in a higher tax bracket at this moment in May if we put it all together right now. And I'm trying to say that because of inflation, because of the cost of living, and because of people having a hard time meeting ends, I was just asking, could we put it in two separate checks this year and next year? But this year I'm talking about, to help people ease that burden, because that's what I'm saying. So I don't know how much longer it would make people wait to get it, but I'm sure if they was able to get more money in their pocket to help maintain with their bills and their eating and their food and their rent or whatever, that they would go along with it. That's all I'm asking. So I know I'm not trying to say they don't have to pay taxes. We have to pay tax on all income. I know, I got that part. I'm just asking for it to be separate check this time.
Well, if it's going to be a separate check this time instead of May, the people might get paid in September. So that's up to the board to decide if they want to do that.
So why would it take that long, Frank?
Because we need to set up a whole, remember, our pays are set up at the beginning of the year with city payroll, with the payroll department, and with the folks who process the payroll. We would have to set up a whole separate payroll in order to do that. I think there's potential problems there, especially given some of the issues that have gone on with payroll over the immediate past. So I would just advise against that for this year, but we certainly would consider it for next year. And I don't know. I mean, Brian, I don't know if Brian, I don't know if he's still here, but fortunately we have an accountant on here. I don't believe your tax bracket changes from month to month
No, I
because of one
understand Carol's
pay.
point. I don't think it's a significant dollar amount. You know, you're withholding the dollar amount could go up for the withholding. They may hold a higher percentage in this pay, this 1 month, because when you annualize the income, it pushes you up to a bracket for the withholding, not for the taxes. But the withholding from the check might be higher, which they'll get back at tax time, or it will negate their bill at tax time.
They might.
Right, they're not going to lose a dime. It's timing here, I think, is Carol's argument. I don't think it's big enough dollars to delay this. And I know my members, I've been putting this out for 2 months. If this check doesn't come in May, I'm going to take a heck of a lot of phone calls. So I don't think it's a significant dollar amount. I understand the timing of the dollars, Carol. They'd rather have it in May than at tax time 6 months later. But to me, it's not a big deal.
So, yeah, just to clarify that we're not going to do a tax course here. It is. It's just like when people get the bonus. The bonus is supposed to be $1,500, but by the time they get the bonus, it's $550, $700. That's the tax liability that the employee faces. So they don't actually get a $1,500 bonus. So that's what I'm talking about. I know that all income is taxable, and at the end of the year, they might get it and they might not get it back. I'm not trying to do nobody income tax return. I'm just trying to do something in the present. So that's all I was talking about. And I had been X-raying this question, so this could have been discussed a little bit a while ago, but we can move forward. I'm done with this.
Okay. Thanks, Carol. Is there any other new business before the board? Okay, that moves us into the litigation summary.
We have one case in Commonwealth Court and one case in CCP that had previously been remanded to the board and is now back up.
Thanks. Any questions for Ellen? Okay, and Fran, do you need to walk through the travel report update?
No, it's in there.
Okay, a motion to adjourn has been made and seconded, and excuse me, hearing no objections, the motion carries unanimously, and we'll move into the deferred comp portion of the meeting. Our first item is approval of our prior meeting minutes. That motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none.
Hey, Jackie, it's Kellen real quick. Nick's gonna take my place from here on. I just want to give you a heads up.
Okay, thanks, Cal. Hearing no discussion on the motion regarding the minutes, we'll move into the roll call. Diana? Or Francois?
I approve.
Thank you. Brian?
I approve.
Leonte?
Approve.
Vanessa?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
Approve.
Nick?
Approve.
And Carol? Carol, do we have you on the minutes?
Approve.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously and moves us into our plan update.
There are no investment updates today. Brad Urbina will provide the updates and an annual review.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As of March, good morning. As of March 31st, the ending balance was in the deferred compensation plan was $1,720,256,983.26. That's about 1% increase since the month of February. Total participant count at the end of March was 24,553. That's 7 less than the previous month. Actively deferring participants that are contributing into the plan, total was 19,130 participants. That's 3 less than the previous month. New enrollments, we saw a significant increase in new enrollments thanks to the new employee orientations. The total new enrollments received in March was 161. That's 71 more than the previous month. Inactive participants did decrease. The total participant count is 5,423. In the 401A plan, the ending balance is $1,931,009.13. No change from the previous month, just a slight increase. Total participant count is 863. That's 6 less than the previous month. Call volumes, there was an uptick in call volumes due to the market. We handled 3,350 phone calls. That's an increase of 644 more phone calls than the previous month. In terms of participants setting up their accounts to leverage the planning tools and the My Interactive Retirement Planner, which is more enhancements or features are being offered. The total participants that have set up an online account is 72%. That's about 170 more since the month of February. In terms of percentage options, there are 1,114 participants that are contributing in the percentage option. That's about 12 more than the month of February. Regarding the Roth 57, which is the after-tax contributions, there are a total at the end of March, 4,356 participants. That's an increase of 96 with plan assets at 22 million. I'm just going to pause for a few seconds if there are any questions for me. If not, I'll pass it on to Brad to discuss the service activity report. Brad?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bina. For the month of March, there were 102 individual consultations conducted by the retirement specialists. There was 135 enrollments, as Bina mentioned. That was an increase over previous months, directly related to a new class at the police academy and also police radio. There were 8 total new employee orientations for the month. There were 16 total group webinars and workshops, and there were 388 total attendees to those. And 12 of those individual consultations involved the My Interactive Retirement Planner. With that, if there are no questions, I will turn it back to Bina to go begin our annual review.
Thank you, Brad. 2021, this is the annual report update of deferred compensation plan, 401A. We want to thank the board trustees, staff, and HR for your partnership, because we continue to service the plan virtually majority of the time. And there were some big increases and some major initiatives that we took together. So deferred compensation plan assets at the end of the year closed at 1.79 billion, which is 15.4% increase than the previous year. When you look at the participant account balances, these are your active, inactive, and those folks that may still be employed but may have stopped their contributions. The total participant count was 24,498. That's 77 more than the previous year. In terms of active participation, we did see a decrease there. The active count is 19,111. That's 42 less than the previous year. New enrollments, major increase in new enrollments. We ended the year with 1,203 new enrollments. That's 22.5% increase from the previous year, or about 221 more. And this was significantly due to your support and partnership in driving some of the email campaigns, as well as the work that the entire team was doing virtually. Inactive counts, 5,387. That's about an increase of 2.3%. When you look at the 401A plan, at the end of December, the plan ended at 2 million. That's 91% increase with 877 participants, or an increase of about 32% participation since the month, since the 2020. As I shared with you, I just want to reiterate, we could not achieve these numbers without the board trustee support and the continued partnership with staff and HR. We did drive 3 key campaigns last year. Some of them, the focus was mostly around making sure that those employees that were not enrolled to drive enrollments. And then the second one is to make sure that there's retention of the plan. So there were 3 key ones that I'll highlight. The first one was implemented in March. And the key focus here in the enrollment email campaign, which was, by the way, sent out from the mayor's office, the key focus here was to target those employees that were still not enrolled in the plan, or to make sure that if they were enrolled, to manage their account, review their asset allocation, or schedule in a one-on-one with the retirement specialist. So here we included, this email was customized for Philadelphia, and we included hyperlinks so it'd be easier and efficient for participants to leverage virtually any kind of tools that they needed. Here, the new enrollments, when we looked at the outcome of the results of the campaign, 237 new enrollments received in the month of March, and that was the highest new enrollments. If you look at the entire year, month by month, 20% was achieved in the month of March due to some of these outreach efforts. The second one was launched in September, and this was to remind folks that were in the Plan 10 and Plan 16 to don't forget about the city's match. So we basically tried to email the participants who were in these 2 plans that were not contributing into the deferred compensation plan. And for those participants that we did not have an email address, we did send out a hard copy. And this email campaign, it was, the total return was around 17 new enrollments. And this is one of those campaigns that we will try to do every year to just remind folks to not forget about the match that the city offers. And then the last one, as folks were nearing retirement, there was a lot of demand for education need. So ready to retire, so those nearing retirement, the retirement specialists received the flyer to encourage folks to meet with them before they transition towards their retirement. So this was something that we designed for the retirement specialists to work with the HR departments and make sure to remind folks to meet with them. On the next page, another major effort was the rebate. $1 million was rebated pro rata basis to all participants who had an account balance as of June 30th, 2021. So that went seamlessly. And we did send out communication in the fourth quarter statements, so to make sure that participants were aware what that rebate was about. I'll pass it on to Brad to discuss the workshops, but if you have any questions, we have provided an in-depth report with additional details and would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Brad, do you want to talk about the workshops?
Thank you, Bina. Yeah, a lot of what I'll talk about is what we report on every month, but I think it's good, once a year to give kind of an annual look at what we did over the past calendar year. So for 2021, the local service team conducted 2,594 one-on-one consultations, both virtual and in person, as the office was closed until July 6th. About halfway through the year, we reopened the office. There were 230 webinars and in-person seminars towards the end of the year, with a total of 5,437 attendees to those webinars and group events. Our Solution Center handled 34,639 calls for the year of 2021. It was a decrease of 10% calls handled over the year before, but 17,269, or just over 70% of participants in the plan have set up an online account, which is a very good number. As of the end of 2021, there are 1,015 participants that were using the percentage contribution option within the plan, and there were 4,036 participants that were contributing to Roth and that was an increase of 1,322 participants from the previous year. In 2021, there were 3 fund mappings that were completed by that was done by the board, and a total of $234 million of participant assets were mapped over to new funds to enhance the fund lineup. And in 2021, there was a pretty major enhancement that was rolled out to the My Interactive Retirement Planner tool. Previously, there was a default rate of return on a participant's account, and the participant could go in and change that. So the participant could have been invested in the guaranteed fund and said, I'm going to get a 10% rate of return. And that clearly would have messed up their planning and given them more money at the end in the planner. So the enhancement that was rolled out was it now offers a personalized projected rate of return based on their asset allocation and the time period that they've chosen until they retire. So it gives a more accurate picture of a participant's retirement readiness as opposed to just using a default percentage option. As Bina mentioned, in the interest of time, we are not going to go through our entire 50-page presentation. You have it, and I would open the floor now to any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Brad and Bina. Are there any questions from the trustees?
No.
Okay. Thank you both. We appreciate the updates. And there has been a motion to adjourn the deferred comp portion of the meeting that was made and seconded, and hearing no discussion, we will move into our investment committee portion.
Thanks, Jackie. The first agenda item is approval of the March 22nd investment committee minutes. So moved and properly seconded that the minutes be approved. I will call the roll. Diana?
I approve.
Brian?
I approve.
Leontine?
Approve.
Nick?
Approve. Approve.
Vanessa?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
Approve.
Paul?
Approved.
And Carol?
Approve.
Motion carries. Thank you all. That takes us to the investment performance review.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everyone. Talk about the numbers briefly in March and through most of April, and then also make a few broader comments about the market. Certainly take any questions, and Marquette certainly chime in as well. March, which, you know, investment-wise seems like quite a while ago, was a strong month for the plan, 70 basis points ahead of its target at a positive 1.7%. A lot of things have obviously changed rather significantly in April. You should have gotten estimates yesterday. You'll see that, you know, for the month, the plan was down over 4%, although that was a healthy margin, 30 basis points ahead of its benchmark. The S&P 500 through that same period, through close of business on Tuesday, was down nearly 8%, and the aggregate bond index was down close to 3%. One of the things I think that's worth, you know, highlighting, even though the plan had a good month in March, is just how difficult the first quarter was historically for investors. It was one of the worst quarters on record to be a traditional 60% stock, 40% bond investor. And to illustrate that, last quarter, period ending March, was one of only 19 out of 184 quarters since 1976, where both the S&P 500 and the bond aggregate index were both negative. Even more rare, it was one of only 6 times that the return on bonds was worse than the return on stocks in that same time. I just think that's helpful from an overall, standpoint to talk about just how difficult, of a time period that first quarter was for investors across the board. Some of you may have seen this morning, it was reported, this was the first quarter, or the first quarter was the first one in quite some time where the economy contracted it shrank by 1.4%. We've seen a continued rise in inflation. I think Marquette does a very good job in their executive summary talking about that, discussing the pro and con arguments about whether inflation has peaked, or at least peaked perhaps in certain call them parts of the economy, sectors of the economy. The 30-year mortgage rate has spiked very, very quickly to around 5%. There's continued uncertainty about what's going to happen and what continues to happen in Ukraine in terms of the war there. It's having a dramatic impact continually on energy prices. You may have also seen this morning that Russia either has or looks set to cut off energy supplies to Poland and Bulgaria. And that resulted on Wednesday for gas prices in Europe, wholesale gas prices going up 20%. And they're 6 times higher as of Wednesday than they were just 1 year ago. And then lastly, the Fed and its drive to raise interest rates in the face of surging inflation and trying to do so and engineer what they call soft landing, which is very difficult, not tip us into a recession, but get inflation under control. And I think there's a lot of doubt in the market about whether they're going to be able to do that. I did, before turning it over to Marquette, of course, we're always happy to take questions. I did just want to make a couple comments about managers. Most continue to do very well over the longer term. I do think it's worth noting that UBS had a very strong quarter, returned over 7%, and actually for the first time in quite a while, actually outperformed Clarion, our other open-end core real estate manager. So the turnaround story there, even as we continue to get redemption proceeds and income payments, continues to be a positive one. A couple managers with recent and very recent struggles, perhaps on a quarterly or slightly longer basis, even though they have good long-term numbers. Elizabeth Park, normally we think of rising interest rates as a positive for banks, and often they are. Unfortunately, the rise in interest rates here is being caused by high inflation, and that's not something that banks like. It's going to probably lessen the desire for business loans, may slow down the housing market in terms of them issuing mortgages. So not surprising that they had a difficult period. Causeway, similar story. Most of their negatives were driven by banks as well as electric and energy or renewable power generation, as opposed to traditional sources of energies. They also lost relative to the benchmark with some chemical manufacturers, and that's another area that's under stress. Agriculture, given how much food, wheat, etc., comes out of Russia, as well as some really important chemicals and fertilizer components needed for agriculture. And lastly, Aerial, again, financial services was a big detractor, perhaps the biggest, as well as a couple of things related to housing, manufacture of certain floor covering and other products detracted from their earnings. Again, no long-term concerns. managers over the longer term continue to hold up well. And with that, again, happy to take questions. Also, Marquette may have additional comments they wanted to share with the trustees.
Thanks, Chris. Can you talk a little bit more generally about how our asset allocation either protected us or didn't protect us from, what you talked about as a historically tough market and how that's carried on into April?
So, yeah, I mean, I think the asset allocation, and Marquette certainly jump in here as well. I think the asset allocation has done a good job in terms of providing some downside protection. I think it's also helpful that the board chose to keep a significant amount of holdings in cash with the RRP payment that came in last month at the end of March. Again, if you look at on a month-to-date basis, I mean, again, being down over 4%. I get it. It hurts. Nobody likes that. It is ahead of the policy target. And when you look at that relative to where the S&P 500 is, just as an example, as I noted, it was down nearly 8%. A lot of the international indexes are also down significantly. The MSCI EAFE is down over 7. The emerging markets index down nearly 8. Similar story fiscal year to date, down about 3.5%. That's behind where the S&P is, but well ahead of where almost all the international indexes are. And that's also during a time period where bonds lost 8.5% over that almost 10-month period. So you are seeing some protection of principal. You are seeing certain managers, as I mentioned, UBS and Clarion, both having returns at or around 7% or higher. That's obviously helpful, as well as the income payments we get from them. So I think the portfolio has held up well. Fran noted in during the benefits meeting, the executive summary, the transparency that this board provides. It's often difficult to compare ourselves on a monthly basis because so few other boards provide that data. The very few funds that I've been able to find data for, we compare well to, or at least in line with. And again, Kwaku or Dave, if you have, Jesus, Alberto, if you have other things you want to add, by all means, please chime in.
Sure.
Thanks, Chris.
Sorry about that, Rob.
No, I
was just going to jump in.
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
Perfect. I was just going to tack on to Chris's comments. So, while we never like to see negative returns, when the market is negative, there's nowhere else to go but down. But our portfolio has held up really, really well. Preliminary numbers show that we're around the 20th percentile in terms of downside protection. If we think about the target rate of return and also put that in the context of our target rate of return perhaps being a little bit higher than some of the peers in the peer group, I think it does just kind of rubber stamp the asset allocation helping on the downside. And as we've seen in 2020, 2021, when there is a rebound, we're definitely participants in the rebound. So next month, I know that we will plan on walking through a stress test. And just to kind of set up expectations, the stress test should provide continued positive reinforcement around the direction of the portfolio. We've continued to see rebounding on the upside whenever the market bounces back. And then when the market does pull back, we're not losing more than the market. We're not an outlier relative to peers, which again is a rubber stamp on the direction we took, closer to 6 years ago now. But the process continues to work for us.
Sounds like we're actually not only not losing more than the market, but maybe losing less.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kwaku. Kwaku mentioned go to staff's report. Kwaku mentioned the stress test for the May meeting. You should also have received your invitation to the education seminar in May, and we'll get the materials out for that, at least a few days ahead of time. We're just going through some final drafts with Marquette. And thanks to everyone who sent staff their respective availability. In terms of securities lending for the month, approximately $111,000, 289,948 year to date, and around 50.69 million since the inception of the program. Diversity and local AUM on a combined basis, 26.23%. North of 18.5% for diversity managers broken out as a standalone group, and just over 9% for Philadelphia and surrounding counties. Lastly, the next 3 board meetings, you'll recall there was a change to the May meeting. It'll now be on May 19th, and then June 23rd and July 28th. That is the total of the listed investment agenda. Again, happy to take questions if there are any.
Any questions? Okay, thanks. Any new business? Any old business? Okay, then it's been moved and properly seconded that we adjourn, and we are adjourned. I'd like to call the full board into session. The first agenda item is approval of actions taken by the investment committee. It's moved and properly seconded that we approve those actions. I'm going to call the roll. Diana?
I approve.
Brian?
I approve.
Leontine?
Approve.
Nick?
I approve.
Vanessa?
Approve.
Roosevelt?
I approve.
Paul?
I approve.
Carol?
Approve.
Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any new business? Any old business? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Okay,
Good month.
have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Bye,
good day.
thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.